I'm sure there was a time where you watched a build video, you saw what the build did, you liked the job function that the build fulfilled, but it wasn't on your main class. So in this video, I'm showing a Strand build utilizing Osteo Striga for all three classes and fulfills the same function for all three. And I believe for Grandmaster Nightfalls, you'll want one of these builds on your fire team. So whether you're a Warlock, Titan, or Hunter main, this video will have a build for you to indefinitely suspend champions and other high health targets. And we're starting out with Warlock. You've probably seen a build similar to this before using Osteo Striga and necrotic grips. And maybe this is the build that you saw that you wish you could do something similar for Titan and Hunter. Well, keep watching, so I'll have a build for you. But really quick, for those who do not know, necrotic grips and Osteo Striga synergize together. If you actually look at the exotic description for necrotic grips, you'll see not only will poison spread from melees, but it just spreads a poison condition. This is why it synergizes with things like Osteo Striga and of course Thorn, as those weapons are poison weapons. We're going to take advantage of this spreading poison condition, and we're going to use it with Strand for the SHACKLE grenade. For Warlocks, when we consume that grenade with Mind Spun Invocation, which is a Warlock aspect, every enemy you kill will have a suspending detonation. And since Osteo and Necrotic spread poison to all these enemies, along with that poison being spread, also suspending detonations will be spread. First, we're going to cover the gameplay loop, how to use this build, then we'll get into the fragments and mods. When we get into the fragments and mods, pretty much be using the same fragments and mods for all three classes: Hunter, Warlock, and Titan. I will have the dim links in the description for all three builds. Starting out with the gameplay loop for Warlock, consume your SHACKLE grenade and you'll get a little chunk back with the grenade kickstart mod on your arms. Then use your healing rift, which will give you a little bit of chunk back from your grenades in your melee with bomber and outreach. You can then shoot your melee. This will give energy back to both your grenade and your class ability with impact induction and focusing strike. Something that's really good about this impact induction and focusing strike is that you don't even need to do powered melee attacks. Just simple normal melee attacks works with these mods. So if you're ever close to a target that you suspended, just give him a little punch, you'll get a chunk of grenade and class ability back to help you top those abilities off to start the whole rotation over. Then you basically just spray your Osteo Striga to cause a chain reaction of poison and suspension. This is why Osteo Striga is so strong and why you can even use it on both Titan and Hunter, because this fragment right here, Thread of Generation, since Osteo Striga is dealing a ton of tick damage, so damage over time with that poison, it feeds into this fragment, allowing you to get a lot of grenade energy back. With these mods and that fragment, you'll be able to get enough grenade energy back to actually just use your SHACKLE grenade like normal to suspend champions or other high health targets before your Weaver's Trance runs out. This is the buff that you get by consuming your SHACKLE grenade. The rest of the fragments that we'll be using is Thread of Warding, so that way when you pick up an Orb of Power, you'll get Woven Mail, which gives you a huge chunk of damage resistance. Thread of Continuity, Suspend, Unravel, and Sever effects applied to targets have increased duration. This is what helps us to keep these high health targets suspend for a very long period of time, allowing you to get back your SHACKLE grenade before the suspension even runs out. Then finally, Thread of Mind. Defeating suspended targets grants class ability energy. This is huge for all three classes, and for Warlock to get our healing rift back, because we're using that as a tool in the gameplay loop to get our grenade back. And of course, every time you cast your rift, you will create 3 threadlings. For the rest of the mods, starting from the helmet, we have the kinetic siphon. Since we'll be mainly using the Osteo Striga, it's a kinetic weapon, so all the multi-kills will be creating tons of orbs. Then I was just using heavy ammo finder along with heavy ammo scout. That way when I'm playing with the fire team, anytime I find heavy ammo, I drop some for them also. For the chest, use whatever resistant mods you would like. One tip is look at the threat of the activity you're playing and use the resistance that matches that threat. For the leg mods, you could use surges, but I'm using recuperation to give a chunk of healing, and invigoration to give me some melee energy back, then absolution just to give all my abilities a little bit of energy. Now we'll be moving on to the Titan, and since the build's pretty much the same for all the classes, I'll only mention some of the differences. So for Titan, I recommend using one of 2 exotics, either Heart of Inmost Light or the new exotic Legs, Abeyant Leap. Even though Heart of Inmost Light was nerfed, it's still a very strong exotic. Basically, anytime that you use an ability, it speeds up the cooldown on your other abilities, also increases their damage. If you're using Heart of Inmost Light, then for sure use all of the same fragments. But if you're going with Abeyant Leap, I recommend getting rid of Thread of Warding. You don't need to get Woven Mail from orbs, because the exotic Legs themselves, anytime that you suspend a target, so whether it's with your SHACKLE grenade or with your class ability, you will get Woven Mail. Since you'll be getting Woven Mail from the exotic Legs, you could go with Thread of Fury. That way, whenever you destroy a target with your Tangle, you get some melee energy back. But instead of focusing strike, we're gonna use bolstering detonation. So that way, every time we throw our shackle grenade, we're gonna get a chunk of our class ability back. With this build, we're gonna be able to throw as many grenades as possible and also activate our class ability as many times as possible, since our class ability also suspends the enemy. So for the leg mods on Titan, because of that, we're gonna use Innervation to get our grenade back even faster, and Insulation to get our class ability back even faster. With this build, we'll be able to not only suspend the enemies indefinitely, but also have Woven Mail up at all times, for the most part, while using our barricade for cover. So basically, whenever your grenade is up, just use it. Whenever your class ability is up, use that as well. And with the mods that we have, whenever we use our class ability, it'll help get our grenade back. Whenever we use our grenade, it'll help get our class ability back. So the exotic armor piece that we'll be using for Hunter is the 6 Coyote. This gives us 2 dodges, and for Strand that means we have 2 dive bombs to suspend the enemy. But something to point out, that mods like Bomber and Reaper don't activate when you use your dive bomb. You can use whatever mods you would like here. I still have them on in case I ever want to top my grenade off. I can just do a dodge, since we do have 2 dives. So since we do need that Woven Mail, we will put that fragment back on. So we'll have the same fragments exactly as we did for the Warlock. And this plays a lot like the Titan. Basically, whenever you have grenades up, you could use those to suspend the target, also feed into those mods to give your class ability back. So all that tick damage coming out with the Osteo Striga helps us generate our grenade back incredibly fast, utilizing all these mods to get both our class ability and grenades back. No matter what class you're on, you'll be able to indefinitely suspend those champions and other high health targets. So whatever your main is, take one of these 3 builds into Grandmaster Nightfalls and be that Strand user on your fire team. Now, I don't really recommend having more than 1 Strand, only because the damage output is not incredibly high. You still do want things like Starfire Warlocks in your team to have that high damage output for ad clear. All the gameplay you're seeing here is in a master lost sector, so these builds do work in solo gameplay. If you're not high enough level to do the master version, honestly the legend version is actually better to do. For lost sectors, if you're trying to grind those exotic armor pieces, because you don't really have that much increased chance by doing the master. So you might have seen all those Osteo Striga and Necrotic Grips Warlocks builds. Now you'll be able to do a similar job filling that same function both on Hunter and Titan. But if you are that Warlock main, maybe you want to check out this Sunbracer build video right here. As I would say, the Necrotic Grips Warlock build is on the S tier for crowd control, while the Sunbracer build is equally an S tier for ad clear and survivability. So go ahead and check that video out if you're interested.